Hello, chess friends, especially the kids from Czech Republic and Germany who are enjoying or enjoyed the international chess weekend right now. And this chess weekend is a fine project of the Pilsner Chess Union, and we all need to special thank to the Pilsen region for their great support of this weekend, and not only financial support of this action. So thank you, and I prepared something strange for you, hopefully, just because, well, the middle game is the key to the chess game. While all of you probably know something about the openings, all of you have probably some repertoire and know the tricks and types of position which are getting from. All of you probably know about the endgames, the endgame rules, and the endgame types, and how to deal with endgame. And probably all of you also know about the patterns in the middle game and the tricks, and all of you are solving puzzles and so on. But maybe the worst case, the strangest thing about the chess game is the middle game planning. Finding the best, really the best game plan in each key position is the toughest thing, and that's our main goal to try to teach ourselves in in this middle game planning. So, well, let's skip into the first position, and there it is. Yeah, not that simple, because, well, white has 4 against 4 on king side. On the queen side there is 2 against 2, where black has some islands. c4, a6. Looks like c4 would be the weakness. This seems to be as a weak point, but, well, it's not so easy to attack such a weakness. So let's see whether we can do or not. But still, first of all, we need to evaluate the chances. The opposite side has the rook on the line. Second line, well prepared for the second one. So he is not that outsider in this type of position. But still, we have some kind of advantage, because we have better bishop on e3. It's simply better than the bishop on g7. And we have more space. We have some advantage in possibilities, like knight can jump to d5. And by the way, we have an advantage. We can attack the weakness. And it seems to be that is the most perfect game plan. Simply attack the weakness. But how to do that? That's a question. We need to respect also the chances of the opposite side. So, well, the first plan, like moving the rook to c1, then jump out with the knight and then swallow the pawn, would probably be not the best choice, best option. Where after rook c1 he will play bishop b7, and after h6 we need to jump back and we are losing the pawn. So yeah, pawn for pawn, that's not the business, because the weakness we want to take and not in the same time losing our pawn. So we need to take care about the game plan of our opponent, because he has a simple game plan. Bishop b7, h6, and knight takes e4. That will happen if we let him. So attacking the pawn, and by the way, solving the situation with our pawn. How can we do it? That's a question. And after a few seconds, probably, you may find the solution, if you have the knowledge what is the game plan of the opposite side. So we will not attack with the rook. We will also not yet attack with the bishop. Something like this would bring us in a trouble, because this is the trouble. And we cannot play f3, because the knight then after h6 has no jump away. So what we have in this knight, nothing special. There is no attacking process, no chance how to deal with him. He is our best trouble. So we will use him for what we want to do. And the plan would be something like that. By the way we are solving the trouble, we will protect the third time our weakness. So that's what we're gonna do. We only need to calculate a little more. So knight f3, bishop b7, knight d2, and rook protects the pawn. Simple way how to protect. And we need to find something more. But still, we have an attacker, and we have, by the way, the defender for our weakness. And that's a situation we shall be happy with. And that's why we need no more calculating, and we will get in the position like this, which is more or less forced. And now we can concentrate our strengths to the pawn. And logically, if we have the defender, we don't need this defender, and we can use him for attack. So the position might be solved by the rook's move, the bishop's move, and at the end we can also do f3, by the way, if necessary. Maybe it's necessary. And in the end we can take the pawn, but after a securing work for our pawn, because we don't need and we don't want to trade these two. We definitely want to take this one for free, because if we are able to do that, then we have a simple plan to follow. We will take our two and march together against one. We will create the passed pawn very simply, and the win is close. So every time see the possibilities and aspects in the position, and see the strengths and the strengths in our position and also in the opposite position. So that's the key. So wonderful plan with the knight. Knight f3, knight d2, and knight takes c4 was a correct game plan to set. Let's skip to the second, which is a little different story. In the game plan we need to see the aspects. In the first one there was a weakness. The pawn was isolated, was not well protected, and it was an easy goal for us to take. There the opposite side could have also the weakness on d4, but weakness is a weakness if we can attack it, and if the opposite side has troubles to hold this one, and it's not the case. It's 4 times protected. So the weakness, attacking this weakness, is not the first proper goal. So let's skip to the another option, and generally speaking is the main option in the game plan building. Our king is wonderful one, safe, without trouble. The opposite king is naked, sitting in the middle of the board, and seeking the opportunities is impossible. He simply need to stay in the middle probably. So what we are gonna do, we wanna open the files against him. F file, E file. Well, the E file is also against him. So which one of these lines we can open? Maybe the simple thing as the F file to open. F6 or F5? Good question. Which one? F6 or F5 is more forcing? Of course F5 is forcing, because after F6 he don't need to do anything. He can still protect the pawn with something like Queen E2 maybe. So it's more forcing to play F5, because after F5 the opposite side needs to take the action against. Maybe you can say he can close the position, and that's what we didn't want to. So yeah, F5, we need to calculate what happens after G5, but it's still more chances for black to open than for white side to close the position. Maybe. f5, g5 is logically the best opportunity for him, but still after knight f7 we have good abilities to lead into the open position. But maybe here the f6 is also opening the position, and much stronger to open the position with this move, because he cannot close the position. So well, maybe f6 is at the end stronger after that little calculating process. But still, we need to wonder what happens even after f5 or f6. Both moves are legal to try. We need to calculate what happens after take, because after we take with the rook or with the bishop, there is a fork happening. Yeah, something like that is making the attack against our pieces. So we need to do something with that. We need to calculate properly the things. Of course, some of you see the possible idea. After f6, e takes f6, rook takes f6, g5, and rook takes f3. Queen takes f3 and bishop d5 with seeking the rook in the corner. Definitely tough to calculate. If you can calculate, you are probably masters in this discipline, in this game plan soluting. But it's really tough. It's really deep calculating process. Question if we shall take the rook or we shall get out with the knight. Maybe it's better to not to lose the knight, because the knight on f5 would be wonderful. But also the possibility for simple take with the pawn is clearly upper hand for black, because he opened not the f file but the e file, and opening the e file is also not bad. Really, that's good. Why not? And the process would be sit the rook to e8, then moving f5 with opening the bishop's position, and reoperating probably the knight across the f7 to d6 and e4, which will be wonderful outpost, wonderful spot for the knight. And by the way, we can put the bishop to block the isolated one. So maybe this solution is even better than finding the solution in sacrifice like this. But this is very adventurous. This is well, objectively better position has black, much better chances, but still the material disadvantage can be risky. If you cannot hit him in the middle, you would have troubles. So this is a risky line. If we continue by taking with the pawn, he will probably also get the pieces away, but you can compare the position like this. It's without risk, and it's wonderful. Yeah, getting the knight on great outpost, sitting with the bishop here, and yeah, the goal is of course opening the position for the white's king. So maybe in a future we can do some f4 and queen g4, and we will attack this way probably. Depends on the movement of white. But this position is sort of wonderful one, thanks to activity and thanks to good plan. Reoperating the knight from h6 to e4 was simply strong idea. And that is a key to finding such a things. Not only opening the files, of course, because well, if he open the file, he has the ability to do something with that. But if we consider all the cases, if we consider all the things in the open position, we would have the upper hand always. But the goal is to see the instability of the king's position. So skip to the third one, which is another chapter in the middle game planning. Now it's tough. We have the king in a safety. where the opposite side is not that safe. We are started some kind of campaign. We will continue probably and open the king's position in a few moves. So it all speaks that we shall not trade the queen, because if we trade queens we are losing the best attacker option. The queen has the strength in attack. So well, we can judge the abilities like queen b5, queen b6. But after all, the opposite side will set the rook, will be the threat, something like that. And by the way, maybe he can also consider the trade of the queens in the better condition, in a better reduction of the case. So not for every price taking this consideration. Yeah, trading queens you don't want to, but in such a situation you can consider the queen's trade, because what happening? Material reduced, but still 2 rooks and two minor pieces rest on board, and the quality of dark square's bishop is wonderful in operation against the white's king, and white's king needs to go into the game a little. The only question, as very similar to previous one, is where we gonna lead our knight, because that's the key. If we can find the square for him, we can consider the queen's trade, and the wonderful square could be c3. Hard to see from that point right now, but after the trade, queen takes, king takes, a4, knight is under attack, a3, pawn is under attack by the pawn and the bishop, and after the pawn walks through or take, we are ready to take an amazing spot for the knight. Yeah, plan making. If we take that spot with the knight, we have fantastic options, and maybe we could be also winning. Could be. Who knows? So if we see such a combination like that, if we see in the future, if we get this game plan that if we set the knight to c3, we could be maybe winning, let's go for that. Queen takes, king takes, logically a4. Now he has a little trouble where to put the knight. It's not easy for solving such a thing. c5 nonsense, getting in self-pinning. d4 looks like good in the middle, but still under attack of the bishop. So it's also a little unhealthy, but he has no other spot. d2 is again a little too defending, but well, able. We can do that. It's not the best, but logical one. Knight is heading somewhere in the future to control the e5 or so. He could have such an option. But now we are ready to do our plan. First we will check him. King moves back. Secondary a3, attacking the pawn here. And after he moves, now we are ready to set the knight in the finishing process, in the finishing attack, with some kind of logical help of the opponent side. For him was not so easy to defend. We are heading into our square, and with that move we are naturally winning, because no move for him. If we get in the corner, he will get under the potentially move of the knight, discovery attack. The same leads after king's moves here. So lost position in a few moves, only judging the best opportunity of the black side, judging the case of movement the pawn and jumping in with the knight to wonderful square c3. So that's the planning. That's definitely the planning. Not be so blind that we want to keep the queens on board if we are gonna attack, because also the opposite side is ready for do such attacking options like e5. Even sacrificing the pawn is opening the diagonal, and he can hope for some action here, some activity to seek. So it's it's really hard to judge. Okay, skip to the next one. It's very fine. This is very fine because there is an e4 square. And cross the e4 square, we can transfer the bishop in the attack. Cross the e4 square, we can transfer the knight in the attack somehow. And finally, cross the e4 square, we can transfer the rook somehow in the attacking mood. So e4 square is open for us. And now we need to judge whether the bishop, whether the knight, or whether the rook would be strongest personality in the attack. And solution of this is not easy. Definitely not easy. Main factor is the opposite side will definitely do g6 at some point. That would be must. But still he has a defending bishop. He can defend the dark squares, hopefully for him. He can probably get himself to g7. So this is not such a big trouble to do g6. For us is the big judgment whether we want to trade pieces or whether we don't want to trade pieces. And general rule for that judgment is that the side which has more space will naturally want to play with pieces on board. And the side which has no squares, which has a lack of space, will naturally try to trade some kind of pieces. So that speaks not for rook's move, and that speaks not for bishop's move. Because after both of these moves, all the situation will lead to trade of the knights at first, and of the bishops at second. Light squares bishop would be traded probably. So finally we will move on e4 the knight. With an idea knight e4, knight g5. He naturally needs to take, and he has no dark squares bishop anymore on board. So we will have a natural advantage. But that's not the end of calculating, of course. Because after knight e4, we lost contact with the rook. It's not holding the pawn anymore. So after knight e4, he can do g6. And the queen will also not hold the pawn. So we are losing a pawn. So the calculating will continue naturally. Where we gonna put the queen, and after the take, if we were some square for the knight, for discovery, attacking the queen. Knight c5 is nonsense, because queen moves away and protect the bishop. Knight g5 is also nothing special, because queen will remove to g7 and hold the h7. And these two were the only spots for the knight. But what's happening here after queen takes e5? All this diagonal will open. And that's the key point. The key squares on the diagonal will not be protected as fast as possible for black. So yeah, we calculate till this point and then say yes. This is great. This is amazing. Now the bishop needs to walk 2 moves and he is simply not able to do. After the knight's move, the bishop will walk to c3 and something like knight f6 or queen h6 in move order, which pastes to the position after his move. We will see what to do, but now you can see that after the knight's moves, the diagonal will be free for our bishop, and there was no trade between the pieces, and there is the killing bishop becoming the fire here. So that's the calculating process after finding the best game plan. We definitely don't want trade pieces. That's happening after bishop e4. He will play naturally g6, and after the step of the queen, who knows where, maybe h3, maybe f3, it's both legals probably, but he will trade first the knight, and after the securing the bishop, somehow like this, he will naturally trade also the bishops. And that's the game. That's maybe simple draw. We have no ability to attack, even if there are the dark squares. But we have no attacker through the dark squares. He will simply get back the bishop if he needs to, and it stops all the action. So remember it. So let's move to the next one. Seems to be again the position with the isolated pawn, but it's not that simple as before, maybe. There is also a tactical trick in. But first of all, it seems to be that we have a tactical trick in this position. We can simply take that pawn, and after he retakes with the queen, we can take on f6, the holder of the queen, and if he retakes, we have the bishop takes h7 and retaking the queen on d5. Something like that. It's naturally the first idea in this position. Now we are taking the queen off. That would be the first idea. But is it really possible to do it? That's the question. We must have a look, stronger look on the position. Knight takes d5, attacking the knight, so he needs to retake. This is probably the only move. Now we take on f6. But he may not take on f6. He can also take on g2, attacking the rook. But you can say we have rook g1. You can say. Rook is attacking. The bishop is not able to take. But if you visualize properly the situation, with the queen on g2, the king cannot step from the check possible. And there is a check with the bishop. Until this point we need to calculate that this is simply wonderful for black, because now the knight holds the rook, so cannot move. So the only person who can move is the bishop. And after the simple trade, we don't have the attacker on g7, and we are one pawn down without any sign of compensation here. So that's impossible. This is simply impossible to accept the pawn, and that would be also nonsense to accept the pawn. In working against the isolated pawn, you must be safe to take, because long term the pawn might be taken, but you must be safe by taking. So preparing the take is the most acceptable version how to deal. Well, maybe in my speech you found it, the solution, or well, another candidate move at least, and it will be knight f4, attacking it twice, which will be considered. And as always, the defending side with the isolated pawn, naturally want to move the pawn to trade him. And that seems to be that it will happen. After knight f4, d4 must be calculated. But what happens with d4? As I mentioned, there is a simple, or not so simple, there is a trick in the position. But by the way, you need to calculate proper, because it's not simple. What happened with knight f4 happened that the queen is able to attack. And with d4 happened that in the same time the queen is able to attack this way. So if you put 1 plus 1 together, you are becoming 2. So now the combination is perfect. Knight f4, d4, bishop takes f6, queen takes f6, and queen h5 with winning the pawn. By the way, there is a checkmate. He needs to hold with g6, h6, but after this move, queen takes here, and after retake is taking there. And the endgame with a pawn plus might be naturally winning. It's still a tough work, but might be winning this position. We can have a look. And it's really possible for you to calculate till this point in the position. And it's also easy to evaluate this position as winning, even if the pawn structure is better for black, but the pawn is a pawn. Also we have more activity. Also we have king in the center, so that's fine. This is fine position, and we did. And the d4 move was probably the best one, even if it's losing a pawn. Because what he can do he do bishop e6? Not so likely, because it's not any solution. You can simply turn the board with the bishop and attack 4 times, and he is not able to hold him so many times. So this is some kind of solution for him, but in this position concretely losing the pawn. But be aware of taking it without being cautious. That's very risky. That's making the position sometimes even worse. And if you keep and look on the position, you will be healthy then. So we can skip to this one. This example is very nice. If you stare a few seconds on the position, you can see that the discomfort for black is there, because if blacks play the standard game, he would be under some kind of tension, with knight jumping to c5, some kind of minority attack with b4, b5, and white's bishops are on best spots in the version where the rook is again the d rook and the c would be available for white. This would be simply wonderful position for white to play. Also e4 is possible for him, and where we gonna put the knight, maybe on e7 back. Yeah, this is, we can have a look. We can have a look after a move like queen c7. He will naturally play e4, and if he get back with the knight somewhere, he will probably continue with idea like knight c5. Maybe he has also knight b5 with knight d6 jump, and we are under a huge tension, and we will probably lose because of lack of space. So in such type of position, we wanna fight. We wanna find something irrational, because if we play it standard, we will slowly lose. What can I call irrational? We need to change the position from the positional way, because this is positional way of position here. We need to reset it into the tactical way of the position. And there is one not so simple to find move, but let's see. You can stop the video and try. I will show it. This knight e3. This is wonderful fork. Queen, rook under attack. The process is he must take. And with the take, the board is crossed for the 2 halves. These pawns are making all the white's pieces to this side, and black has the ability to achieve the correct side with his queen. Simply crossing the half and attacking the king's position. And as you can see, even if the piece is whole piece simply, so it might be winning for white with whole piece more, but the value of rest of the pieces is nowhere. There are many options for black. Taking here, taking there. Also the knight's movement somehow after queen takes g3 there is a knight moving possibility. Also the bishop is able to get the diagonal, and at the end also the rook. So there are many options, and white from the positional dominance now is white in troubles, and he needs to stay alive and conquer the game into the end game, which is never the goal for black. He wanna finish the game in the middle game, by the way, attacking the king, sorry, with the queen mainly. So how to do that? There is some kind of protection needed of the pawns. So well, what is the best move for white? Hard to say. Maybe he can protect the e3, because if he will lose the e3, also the rook will become the game. So let's protect the pawn in the middle with this. How to continue right now? Yeah, crushing the king, of course. Do you see the crushing move? Hopefully yes. There is the crushing move. Bishop takes h3. After bishop retakes, queen retakes, bishop g2 back, and now finalizing the options. Now g4 and finished. As you can see, for white it's definitely tough to defend the position. Now it's probably finished, and he did everything logical. He didn't make any kind of blunder for the first side, and still he lost the position in which he were dominating. This position is dominated positionally by white. He has everything he could have, only he maybe didn't see the tactical motives in the position. He is positionally strong. Knight c5 coming, e4 coming. The position is brutally dominating, and black has troubles. But black can get out of it with this not so simple move. But if you stare a position a few minutes, you need to find such a motive. You need to find such a solution, because that's necessary. If you will not get a solution like that, you will slowly lose, and you don't want to lose by no manner. Even if this couldn't be calculated till the end. This is probably impossible to calculate. You can simply find the value of your pieces. Queen, better. Rook, much better. Bishop, okay, it's equal. This bishop, much better than his. And the knight has much more chances than, for example, the knight on a4. So well, if you judge a little, you will find that you have enough to sacrifice the piece. Well, maybe g4 is available. Maybe g4 is the best move you can consider. But even after g4, you are available to sacrifice the second one. Not any kind of trouble. This is wonderful position for black, where white has huge trouble to stay alive, as you can see. Good, so we can skip to the next one, which is very complicated for the first side, because there is a weak king of the opposite side, but we have also nothing special here on e1. So how to deal a position like this? This is very open. Every piece has the value here. Of course, there is a point number one, a fork. We can check him and take the rook in the corner, but what we are achieving with taking the rook in the corner, probably we are giving him only the options to finish us. With later he take on b4, then he jump on c4, in the same time attacking the rook in the corner. So well, we can have a look over and visualize, of course, a variation like that, but we will be not happy with that probably. We will be sad to keep this position alive. Is hard work. This is dominance for black's pieces. He has 1, 2, 3, 4 attackers, and we will not have too many defenders to stay alive in a position like that. So taking the rook in the corner is not the solution, or is a type of solution, but this solution helps the opposite side. So we need to fight more. Still, with the fork we can achieve the bishop. Maybe the bishop to take could be healthy, because that's a strong one. The bishop is cooperating by the attack on the c4. So without the bishop we will not lose the pawn on c4. So that's favorable, hopefully. But if we stare at the position a few minutes, we will not see the only king's position, but we want to control also the queen's position. And the queen of black seems to be away from game under some circumstances. The queen has no moves, really, right now. After knight moves, she can take on b4, but it's risky, because after the king moves, then the rook takes there. So it's a very risky situation for the queen. And that speaks for take there. And then capturing the queen on the border somehow, that could be the game plan. But still, there is also a different type of game plan by doing knight f6. So now we need to choose which one we will do. First one is check, take. He cannot take right now, because after king d1 and retaking the knight, rook b1 and rook takes b7 is really risky for him. So he will probably retake. But now after rook b1, the queen is bad on the border with a lot of troubles. And well, the king's position is, by the way, better for white right now. The second option still is that we can jump to f6 with a simple idea. He must retake probably. We will retake, and now the rook and the knight, which is also good piece, are under attack. But maybe now he can buy the freedom for the queen with simple take. Now after king d1 he will get out with the rook, and if we attack the queen walks somewhere to a5 probably, and we will retake the pawn. But still there is no finish. Still there is a weak king of the opposite side, and we have also troubles. We need to stay in the middle with our king, where the material is equal. So tough decisions. Maybe white is a little better, but if we compare it with the first game plan, we can feel much better here, because we have a simple game plan to follow. The queen could be really trapped somehow, because, well, she has the only square on a6, and that's not healthy square, because after c5 she will be under the bishop's attack, and in the same time the king in the middle has huge troubles. So what to do here for black? This is never so easy, where rook b3 is well, one of the best moves, because the only move is queen a4, and then the potential discovery of the rook is very dangerous somehow to solve the trouble. And also white has a simple plan to build. Bishop e2, castling, rook d1, and finish the king in the middle. Without the queen, the play for black is, there are simply diminishing the options for the black side, and that will probably lead to resign after some moves. We can move for him. a5 is the most logical probably, because he definitely wanna find the freedom for the queen. But after b5, not getting the queen out, queen c5 is nonsense because of this. Now he needs to retake with the queen, and well, after c5 he shall lose. This is the threat, main threat here. Cannot get back with the king also, because the variation like that is lost. Now you can easily see that the bishop pair is making it very simple. Bishop b5, bishop g3, and so on. These rooks are not cooperating really well together, and the position against the bishop pair is simply lost, but it's lost only due to the queen's position. Queen is away from game. So if we get back to the beginning point, it's not about the king's position at all. Okay, it's secondary, but it's mainly about the queen's position. The queen is away from game. So that's also the aspect for calculating process. King's position, queen's position, weaknesses in structure, holes in a structure. And in building the game plan, you need to take all these aspects into consideration, and sometimes these aspects are going cross together, and you need to take that action which is objectively the best one and consider all the things on board. Of course, such a key position you will get 3-4 times in the position where you need to spend time for thinking. And if you set the correct game plan, you can briefly walk through in the next key position. We can say that if we find the game plan like this, now we get the next key position where we finished our first goal, and that was decreasing the power of the black's queen at minimum. And now we need to find another goal, how to simply finish the things off. And while the queen is sitting on the border, it might be not so hard task for us to do, because we are cooperating much better with our strengths. And by the way, our queen is much faster, much stronger in the attacking moods. Like she is, by the way, attacking the pawn, so he cannot move this rook. It could be also a factor in some position after rook b3 or so. So yeah, hopefully you enjoyed that training with me, and hopefully we will see soon behind the board. Hopefully the coronavirus situation will fly away soon. The sooner the better, of course. So have a nice day and see you. Bye.